We've all seen those effortless learners, right? The ones who seem to just, I don't know, breeze through mastering English,
Yeah.
while, others find themselves in this long, sometimes really frustrating struggle. It makes you wonder,
Uh-huh.
are they just wired differently? I mean, what's going on inside the brain? Is there something that gives some people an edge?
It's true. That perception of natural talent is really strong.
Yeah.
But actually, there's a whole world of science and like smart strategies behind learning faster. It goes way beyond just innate ability.
Okay, so that's our mission today. Welcome everyone to a deep dive into the fascinating world of language acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try and uncover the key factors, the habits, the strategies that really accelerate English learning, moving beyond, just the traditional method.
Exactly. We'll look at linguistic research, psychological studies, even what real learners do.
All to give you some actionable takeaways, things you can actually use.
Yeah, definitely. By the end of this deep dive, you should have a much clearer picture of how to make your English learning journey, well, more efficient, maybe even more enjoyable.
And definitely more successful.
Hopefully, yes.
More successful.
So let's start with the brain then. Is there some kind of secret mechanism, something that gives certain people an edge, or is that mostly a myth?
Well, what's really fascinating here is that while some research does look into how our brains process language there was a 2008 study about brain volume and processing pitch.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but the main takeaway for us as learners is that it's not really about some unchangeable wiring. It's not something we can actively, modify right now.
Okay.
So focusing on it isn't really the most actionable path forward.
That's actually quite reassuring. So it's not like you're born with a language gene or anything like that.
Not really, no.
But what about that common idea that kids learn languages way faster than adults? Is there truth there? Does it apply to learning, say, English as a second language? Ugh, that's a really common misconception. It often comes from Noam Chomsky's theory back in '57.
Right, I've heard of that.
Yeah, he suggested kids learn their native language super fast because of a sort of pre-installed mechanism. And that's incredible for first language acquisition. But crucially, it does not translate to learning a second language. The real insight is you can learn English effectively at any age. You just need the right methods.
Okay.
Adults actually have advantages too,
Yeah.
like better analytical skills, bigger vocabulary in their own language. Kids don't have that.
That's fantastic news for all of us adult learners then. Phew.
Definitely.
So if it's not pure brain structure or being a kid, what is a really critical factor that makes some learners more successful?
Motivation.
Hmm.
Simple as that, really. It's the engine driving everything.
Okay.
And we can kind of break it down. There's intrinsic motivation, that's learning, because you genuinely want to, like you're interested in the culture or connecting with people.
Right, the internal drive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That leads to deeper, more effective learning. Then you've got external motivation needing it for a job or for study.
Which is still valid, of course.
Oh, absolutely valuable. But the sort of deep dive insight here is that intrinsic motivation. That's what makes learning feel almost effortless sometimes and way more sustainable long term.
Right.
The challenge and maybe the insight is figuring out how to build that intrinsic drive, even if it starts externally.
Okay, and what about those mental roadblocks, the things that hold people back, even when they are motivated? Fear seems like a big one.
Oh, it's huge. The fear of making mistakes, it can absolutely paralyze your progress, stop you from even opening your mouth.
Yeah, I can see that.
The solutions, they sound simple, but they need a real mindset shift. First, just accept mistakes. They're natural. They're necessary. Every fluent speaker made thousands of them.
Okay, easier said than done sometimes, but
Totally. Second, focus on communication. Just getting your message across. Don't worry about perfect grammar or pronunciation in every single sentence. Think delivery, not perfection.
right, just connect.
Exactly. And finally, immerse yourself as much as you possibly can. The more you hear English, the more you use it, the less scary it becomes. It builds confidence naturally.
Makes sense. So when it comes to actually remembering stuff, vocabulary, grammar memory is obviously key. Are there specific strategies that really work better than just, staring at lists?
Oh, absolutely. Three key memory strategies really stand out for vocabulary. They turn passive learning into something active. First, spaced repetition.
Ah, yes. The flashcard apps use this, right?
They do, but it's more than just reviewing. It's strategic. The timing is crucial. You review the word just before your brain is about to forget it.
Okay.
That forces your brain to work harder to retrieve it, which makes the memory much stronger than just rote learning.
Clever. What else?
Then you've got mnemonics. remembering words through pictures, funny associations, stories, making connections that are easier to recall. Often using humor or really vivid images helps.
Like making a little mental movie for a word.
Exactly. And finally, learning in context. This is so important. Learn words inside full sentences or phrases, not just at isolated items.
Why is that better?
Because you see how the word is actually used in real communication, and you remember the meaning through the whole situation or scenario, it sticks much better.
Yeah, I could see that. Learning a word in a sentence feels more, well, real. Now, I've also heard that people who already speak multiple languages tend to pick up new ones faster. Is that true? What's the secret there?
Yes, there's definitely a multilingual advantage. And the core insight isn't just that they're smarter or something, it's more that they've already learned how to learn a language.
Okay. They have a process.
Exactly. They're familiar with language systems, they've probably figured out what study strategies work for them personally, and they can spot parallels or shortcuts between languages they know.
Makes sense.
Plus, some research, like a study by Bialystock in 2011, suggests multilingual people might even have slightly higher cognitive abilities, like better executive function, which certainly doesn't hurt.
Right. And they're probably less intimidated by the whole process, too.
That's a big part of it, too, yeah. Less fear.
All right, so we've covered the brain, the mindset, but let's get really practical now. Where do most learners actually get stuck? What are those common frustrations we can finally, name and fix?
That's a really important question, because spotting these common errors early, that can save so much frustration and really speed things up.
Okay, lay them on us. What's a big one?
One of the absolute biggest challenges, especially if your native language doesn't have them, is misusing articles. Hey, N.
Oh, yeah. Dropping them, mixing them up. I hear that a lot.
It's super common. It can make sentences sound quite unnatural, even if the meaning is clear.
So what's the tip? How do you get a handle on those tricky little words?
Well, the basic rule is A and N for nonspecific things, I saw a dog, and the for specific things, I saw the dog that lives next door.
Okay, the basic rule. But getting it right consistently.
That's where the real trick comes in. It's about massive exposure. Read a lot, listen a lot, but don't just consume passively. Actively notice how native speakers use articles in context.
Pay attention specifically to articles.
Exactly, and practice consciously. Identify nouns and sentences and actively decide which article fits. Over time, you build an intuitive feel. It's less about memorizing rules, more about internalizing patterns.
Okay, that deepens the approach. Makes sense. What's next on the common pitfall list?
Incorrect verb tenses. This is another major one. Mixing up past, present, future, saying things like, I go to the party yesterday.
Right. Immediately flags you as a learner and can cause confusion.
Exactly. And the underlying issue is often just applying the tense rules from your own language directly to English, and they often don't match up.
So the fix.
Yeah.
Beyond just memorizing verb charts, which can be tedious.
Well, you do need to familiarize yourself with the tenses and their uses, that's true. But the real insight is to actively embody them. Practice writing sentences, yes, but also read passages specifically looking at how tenses shape the story. And here's a really practical tip. Try narrating your daily activities out loud. I am making coffee. Yesterday I went to the shop. It forces your brain to choose the right tense in real time.
Ooh, I like that. Builds muscle memory for your grammar.
Precisely. Linguistic muscle memory.
Okay, what about prepositions? Those tiny words like on, in, at, about. They seem to cause endless headaches.
They absolutely do. Confusing prepositions is incredibly common. Things like saying interested on instead of interested in, or mixing up on, in, and at for time and place.
Oh, frustrating.
It is, and the key thing to grasp here is that prepositions are often idiomatic. They don't always follow strict logic.
Right, so trying to deduce the rule doesn't always work.
Often it doesn't. The better approach is to study common prepositional phrases as chunks of language. Good at something, responsible for something. Flashcards can be great for this, especially if they have example sentences.
Learn the whole phrase.
Yes. And practice with native speakers. Pay really close attention to how prepositions are used with specific verbs and adjectives when you're watching movies or listening to podcasts. You start to get a feel for them.
Okay, chunks and context.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, another huge one I know people struggle with is translating directly from their native language.
Oh, definitely. Direct translation. It often leads to really awkward, sometimes completely incorrect sentences.
Yeah. Like the example you hear sometimes, it makes sense becomes it does sense.
Exactly. Or idioms just don't translate. Languages have different structures, different ways of expressing ideas.
So how do you break that habit?
The core insight is to detach from word-for-word thinking. Focus on the meaning you want to convey, and then think about how to express that meaning naturally in English. Don't translate words, translate ideas.
Easier said than done, maybe.
It takes practice. Try to think in English as much as possible, even for simple things, and actively learn common English idioms and expressions as complete units, not as individual words you piece together.
Okay, think in concepts, not words. Good advice.
Yeah.
And finally, what's a habit that can make even pretty fluent speakers sound less confident?
Overusing fillers, the ums, uhs, likes,
Guilty as charged sometimes, even in my native language.
We all do it. But overuse in a second language can make your speech sound hesitant, unclear, maybe like you're not sure what you're saying.
Right. So how do you reduce them?
The insight here is to consciously replace fillers with strategic pauses. Silence is okay. Practice speaking without them, record yourself. Maybe practice with a partner who can gently point them out.
Embrace the pause.
Exactly. Allow yourself a moment to think instead of filling the space with, Also, practicing responses to common questions or topics beforehand can really help reduce fillers when you're speaking spontaneously. You feel more prepared.
Great tips. Okay, so we've identified the pitfalls. We know what not to do. How do we move beyond just fixing mistakes and really, truly embed English into our lives? Make it feel natural.
Right. If we connect this back to the bigger picture, the answer really is immersion. It's absolutely foundational.
Define that for us in this context.
Immersion is about completely surrounding yourself with English as much as possible so you start to rely on it instead of automatically switching back to your native language. It provides those endless streams of real language interactions.
And it compels you to use it naturally, right? Not just study it.
Precisely. It moves you past conscious effort towards more intuitive understanding and use.
And the benefits.
Yeah.
What does that deep immersion actually do for a learner?
It's incredibly powerful. It trains your brain to pick up on native-like patterns, often subconsciously. It forces you to use English in real contexts for actual communication, and it creates these reinforcing emotional anchors.
Emotional anchors, what do you mean?
When you learn something because you needed to order coffee or understand a movie you love or chat with a new friend online, that learning is tied to an experience, an emotion. It sticks much better than just memorizing a list. It becomes meaningful.
That makes perfect sense. Now, the ideal immersion scenario we always hear about is packing up and moving to the UK, the US, Canada, Australia.
Right, an English-speaking country. That's the gold standard for sure. Full, unavoidable immersion.
But let's be real, that's often just not feasible for most people, right?
Yeah.
Financially, logistically. And maybe your English isn't even good enough yet to manage that.
Exactly. It's a huge step and not always practical. But the really good news is you absolutely can create a deeply immersive environment right where you are, at home.
Okay, I'm listening. How? Give us the practical strategies. How do we bring immersion home?
All right, first, a super simple but surprisingly effective step. Change the language settings on all your devices. Phone, computer, car navigation, smart speakers like Alexa or Google Home, switch them all to English.
So you're constantly seeing and interacting with English for everyday tasks.
Exactly. It's constant low-level exposure. Second, try to create an English-only zone or time in your home. If you live with others, maybe agree to speak only English during dinner or in the living room.
Ooh, that could be challenging but effective.
It can be. You could even label objects around your house, the fridge, the window, the sofa, with sticky notes in English. Turns your home into a giant interactive vocabulary lesson.
I like that. Visual cues everywhere. What about media? That seems like an easy win.
Absolutely essential. Make a commitment. Only watch TV, news, movies in English. Start with English subtitles if you need them, then try turning them off as you get better.
And music, podcasts.
Yes. Listen to English music. Find English podcasts you enjoy. There are tons for learners, like Everyday Language, Learning English Meditation, loads of options. Listen to audiobooks in English. Just surround your ears with the language constantly.
Okay, so saturate your passive listening. But what about active interaction? Speaking practice is crucial, right? Getting over that fear we talked about.
Crucial. And this is where the internet is amazing. Join online communities or text chats where people use English. The ELAN community is one example for learners. Find forums related to your hobbies.
And I heard you mention video games.
Yes. Playing online multiplayer video games with English speakers is surprisingly effective. It really ramps up the emotional anchors because you have to communicate, often quickly, to play the game. It forces you to use the language under pressure, which makes it stick.
That's a fun one.
Yeah.
What about more direct conversation practice?
Seek out language partners. Platforms like Discord, HelloTalk, Tandem, Cambly, Palfish. They connect you with native speakers or other learners for practice. Schedule regular chats. Don't be shy. Everyone's there to learn.
Are there online courses that try to replicate that immersion feel too?
Yes, definitely. Look for online immersion courses. The good ones offer everything in English, use exercises that genuinely make you use the language for real tasks, and this is key, include lots of real-time interaction with instructors and other students. They create a kind of virtual study abroad experience.
Okay, fantastic. So mindset, avoiding pitfalls, building an immersive environment. Now let's really unpack the specific habits. What do highly effective learners do day to day? And are there any, unconventional or creative techniques to boost skills?
Right. What's really interesting here is how it all comes together: consistency, curiosity, and using a mix of techniques. It's about weaving English into your life, so it's not a separate chore.
Makes sense.
And the absolute linchpin, the number one thing, consistent practice, not just hours logged, but regular, varied practice, both input and output.
So not just drilling grammar for an hour, then forgetting it. How do you make it varied?
Exactly. It means reading widely, books, articles, websites, whatever interests you, consuming different kinds of media, movies for slang, news for formal language, YouTube for different accents, and then actively producing English daily.
Like how?
Maybe keeping a journal in English, participating in online discussions, sending voice notes to a language partner instead of just texting. Mixing it up keeps your brain engaged and targets different skills.
Okay, variety and consistency. What about the learner's attitude? Curiosity came up earlier.
Huge. The best learners have a curiosity-driven mindset. They don't just learn the basics, they actively engage. They want to know why a grammar rule works that way or what the nuances of a word are.
So they're always asking questions, looking things up.
Yes, using dictionaries, online resources, language apps, asking questions on forums. They don't just passively absorb, they actively seek knowledge. And they participate, join conversations, debates, language clubs, online groups on Reddit or Facebook. They put themselves out there.
Right. Active engagement. Now, I've heard about this next technique. It sounds a little odd at first, maybe. Talking to yourself.
Ah, yes. Shadowing. It sounds strange, but it's incredibly powerful. It actually mimics how kids pick up pronunciation and intonation naturally.
Okay, tell us how to do it properly. What's the deep dive on shadowing?
Right. You choose a short audio or video clip in English, maybe a scene from a movie, a bit of a TED Talk, something with clear speech. Listen once just to understand.
Yeah?
Then play it again and immediately repeat what the speaker says right after them. Try to match their exact pace, their rhythm, their emotion, their intonation, like you're their echo.
Wow, okay. Sounds intense.
It is. And recording yourself doing it, then comparing it to the original, that's where the magic happens. You really start to hear the differences.
And the benefits. What does this actually improve?
It drastically improves your pronunciation, intonation, rhythm, the musicality of the language. It helps you sound more natural, develop a more authentic accent, and get used to speaking at a normal pace. You're training your mouth and ears together.
Building that muscle memory again. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, what about making learning less like study and more like, fun?
That leads perfectly into incorporating English into your hobbies. This is where learning can become truly enjoyable and almost invisible.
How so? Give us examples.
Okay, love cooking. Follow recipes from English cookbooks or watch English-speaking chefs on YouTube, Jamie Oliver, Tasty whoever. You'll soak up food words and instruction language naturally. Into art or photography. Watch tutorials or follow vloggers in English on Skillshare or YouTube. You'll learn all the specific terminology. If you like fitness, subscribe to English workout channels, Chloe Ting, Fitness Blender. You'll learn action verbs, body parts, health phrases.
So pursue what you already love. Just do it in English.
Exactly. The motivation is already there because it's your hobby. The learning just tags along for the ride.
Brilliant. And technology. Beyond just changing settings, how can apps and social media help speed things up?
Tech is a massive accelerator if used smartly. Language learning apps like Duolingo, Babbel, Rosetta Stone are great for interactive lessons, drills, vocabulary.
Usual suspects.
Yeah. But also think about social media. Follow English language accounts like BBC Learning English or content creators who teach idioms or pronunciation on Instagram or YouTube. But don't just scroll, engage, comment, ask questions.
Make it interactive.
Definitely. And there are specialized apps too, like Fluently teaches you vocabulary from a specific movie or TV show before you watch it. Or Maytalk helps with listening, reading along, and gives feedback on your pronunciation accuracy. Turn that passive screen time into active learning time.
That's clever. Preloading vocab for a movie. Okay, what about practicing speaking in specific situations, like preparing for a job interview or ordering in a restaurant? That can be nerve-wracking.
Absolutely. That's where role-playing scenarios come in. They're excellent practice.
How does that work?
You simulate real-life situations.
Hmm?
You could practice with a language partner. One plays the interviewer, one plays the candidate, or practice booking a hotel room or making a complaint. It forces you to think on your feet and use specific vocabulary and context, but in a safe space.
Right, low-stakes practice.
Exactly. You can find communities on Discord or HelloTalk that encourage role-playing. You could even record yourselves doing it on a video call to watch back later. It really builds confidence for those real-world interactions.
That sounds really useful. Okay, any other slightly unusual or experimental ways to learn to keep things fresh?
Yeah, definitely. Try some language experiments. Challenge yourself to an English-only day. Seriously. Try to think, speak, even mutter to yourself only in English for a whole day. It really highlights where your gaps are.
Wow, that sounds tough but revealing.
It is. Or get creative. Use story cubes or find a random image generator online. Pick 4 or 5 random images and write or tell a short story connecting them all. It forces you to use descriptive language and linking words.
Thing.
Another powerful one is reverse translation. Write a paragraph about something in your native language, then translate it into English. Then, and this is key, find a model answer or get a native speaker to correct yours. Compare them closely. You'll see exactly where your phrasing or structure differs from natural English.
Ah, that direct comparison sounds very effective.
Yeah.
What about organizing all this new information, especially for complex topics, maybe for exams like IELTS?
Creating mind maps is fantastic for that. It's a visual way to organize information, which really helps with memory.
How would you use a mind map for English learning specifically?
Okay, say you're studying the topic of global warming. Put that in the center. Then create main branches for categories like vocabulary, causes, effects, solutions. Then add sub-branches with specific words, phrases, ideas.
Right, visual connections.
Exactly. Use colors, maybe little icons or drawings. It helps structure the information in your brain, makes it easier to see connections, and boosts recall, especially when you review the map regularly.
Great visual tool. Now, there's one method that sounds almost too simple, but I know experts swear by it: extensive reading. Can you break that down? What is it really?
Yes, extensive reading. It's incredibly powerful, often underestimated. It's defined basically as reading a lot of easy material in English, reading for pleasure, and reading quite quickly, maybe 150, 200 words per minute.
So easy books for fun and reading fast, not struggling through difficult texts.
Exactly. The key is that the student chooses what they want to read, and it should be easy enough that they understand almost everything without constantly stopping to look up words. Volume and enjoyment are the goals.
Okay, why is that so effective? What are the core benefits?
There are at least 7 major benefits. First, you simply become a better reader. You learn to read smoothly and focus on meaning just by doing a lot of it, like learning to swim by swimming.
Makes sense.
Second, you learn way more vocabulary, almost without trying. You see words repeatedly in different contexts, maybe 15 or 20 times, which is how vocabulary really sticks, much better than a single flashcard encounter.
Right, that contextual repetition.
Third, it actually improves your writing. It primes your brain with natural sentence structures, phrasing, flow, things you absorb subconsciously and then start to use in your own writing.
Wow, reading improves writing.
Fourth, it improves your overall language competence. Studies show gains not just in reading and writing, but even in listening and speaking, because you're internalizing the rhythm and patterns of the language.
That's surprising. Even helps speaking.
It does seem to, yes. Fifth, learners become more motivated. When you discover you can actually enjoy reading a whole book in English, it's a massive confidence boost. It makes learning feel less like work.
I can see that. A real sense of achievement.
Absolutely. Sixth, it develops learner autonomy. You're choosing what to read, when, where. You take ownership of your learning, it builds great habits.
And the 7th benefit.
This one's fascinating. Studies suggest extensive readers, especially of fiction with diverse characters, tend to become more empathic. Reading stories seems to literally expand your ability to understand others' perspectives.
That's incredible. A benefit far beyond just language.
It really is a profound side effect.
Okay, That's amazing insight on extensive reading. Now let's bring it home for everyone listening, especially those with really packed schedules. You mentioned a blueprint for manageable progress.
Yes, a simple 5-day study plan. It's designed for consistency even if you only have a little time each day. The absolute core principle is learn something new, then immediately apply it throughout the day.
Don't just learn it, use it. Okay, walk us through this 5-day cycle. Day 1.
Day 1. Learn one new vocabulary word. Just one. For example, maybe the word ambiguous, meaning unclear or having multiple interpretations.
Okay, learn ambiguous. Then what?
Then the crucial part. Make a conscious effort to use the word ambiguous as many times as you can throughout that day. In your thoughts, maybe write it in an email, try to slip it into a conversation if possible, actively use it.
Got it. Active application. Day 2.
Day 2, learn one new expression, like at a loss, meaning confused or unsure what to do. And again, the mission is to use at a loss actively all day long. Think it, write it, say it.
Okay, expression on day 2. Use it all day. Day 3.
Day 3, learn one new idiom. For instance, add fuel to the fire, meaning to make a bad situation worse. Same drill. Learn it, then actively look for chances to use add fuel to the fire throughout your day.
Idiom on day 3. Use it all day. Seems like a pattern. Day 4.
Correct. Day 4, learn one new phrasal verb. Maybe act up, meaning to misbehave or malfunction. Learn act up, then integrate it. Talk about your computer acting up or kids acting up. Use it.
Phrasal verb. Day 4. Use it.
Okay.
Okay, so day 5 must bring it all together somehow.
It does. Day 5. Describe one image with 3 sentences. Find any picture online, maybe news photo, a holiday snap, anything. Your task is to write or say 3 sentences describing that image.
And the point here is?
The point is to try and naturally weave in the word, expression, idiom, or phrasal verb you learned earlier in the week, if possible. But mainly, it's creative output practice. It forces you to produce language, connect ideas, use descriptive words. It integrates everything.
Ah, I see. So it's weekly cycle. Word, expression, idiom, phrasal verb, then describe an image, always with an immediate active use.
Exactly. It's simple, manageable, even if you're super busy, but incredibly powerful because of that consistent cycle and the focus on immediate application. That's the secret sauce. Consistent, active use.
Fantastic practical plan. So wrapping things up for our deep dive today, it feels like the big takeaway is that learning English faster isn't about some secret hack or just being gifted.
Not at all. It's much more about a combination of things. Understanding the psychology or motivation, managing fear, actively avoiding those common mistakes we talked about,
Right.
intentionally creating that immersive environment, even if it's just at home, and then consistently applying a variety of engaging learning strategies. It's about being smart and consistent with your effort.
So the power is really in your hands. By being aware of all these factors, by integrating these habits, these techniques into your daily life, you really can boost your English skills. You can achieve fluency faster than maybe you thought possible.
Absolutely. Practice, definitely patience, and trying to find genuine enjoyment in the process. Those are probably your best allies on this journey.
And maybe a final thought to leave everyone with.
Yeah.
Something to chew on.
Well, given all those extra cognitive benefits we touched on, increased empathy from reading, better mental agility, maybe even better decision making, what new perspectives, what unexpected doors might open for you if you make learning English a more intentional, maybe even exciting part of your world?